Welcome to the Real Deal On. And we are going to unpack what it takes to break through to that next level, to challenge yourself and others to greatness. And today we have a very wonderful guest here. Her name is Sherry Grote, is a strategic, inspirational leader pioneering the Harmony Hero TM framework to empower professionals to go from unseen to unforgettable. With 25 years of experience driving revenue growth and brand transformation in B2B and SaaS organizations, Sherry has led demand generation, go-to-market strategies, and leadership retreats that drive massive ROI. As a founder of the Harmony Hero Initiative, Sherry's mission is to help leaders build confidence, lead loudly, and use their voice as their most powerful tool. Through her signature keynote, Orchestrating Harmony from Murmur to Maestro, she teaches leaders how to think innovatively, align sales and marketing teams, and step confidently into the spotlight. Sherry is a dynamic speaker, blending storytelling, strategy, and emotional intelligence to inspire audiences across the nation. She knows firsthand the struggle of being unheard, unseen, and undervalued in leadership roles, and she has made it her mission to help others step into their power, conduct harmony, and lead loudly. So, welcome, Sherry.
All right.
So, that was a mouthful in that you're fitting so much experience and leadership and other amazing opportunities into your work. And I quite say the idea of introducing harmony and murmur to maestro speaks to me, and I'm looking forward to finding how music or that analogy, that metaphor came into play. But please share your story.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on
Of
today.
course.
I am excited to have this conversation. And that was an incredibly energetic intro and just really got me all psyched for
Oh,
today. So
good.
that's
Awesome.
awesome. So I am a marketing executive. I have 25 years of experience working in mostly B2B and SaaS, and I have built a reputation with leaders in being able to be a utility player who comes in, is able to work with any type of personality involved and actually get the job done. That's my go-to strength, right? What I have built in the Harmony Hero and the love for music. I have a love for music, all types of music. My playlist might actually drive my kids crazy more than anybody else because it's all over the map. But music is a huge part of us. My husband plays guitar and piano. My daughter plays piano. My son plays guitar. And our house looks a lot like your wall right there, as a matter of fact. The best part about that transition for me is that my husband had a brainstem stroke 11 years ago,
Wow.
well, days ago, as a matter of fact, we just celebrated that. And he is a walking, talking miracle. And he grew up playing piano, learned to play guitar. And as our kids grew up, both of those instruments transitioned into our children, and there was a redemption in that because he can't play those anymore. So for me personally, on a personal note, hence the reason for most of the musical analogies, I love listening to my kids play. My most favorite instrument of all is the 12-string guitar that sits in,
Mm.
and it is beautiful when it is played well. However, what I have done in the course of my career is learning how to orchestrate that harmony among people. And when you can do that, you can create immense impact, both in the business and in your personal life, using
Hmm.
your influence to create impact. And so that's what I'm helping people do.
Love it. Well, I mean, obviously, you can glean into my background here, the value and importance to music, and it has. And it was interesting. One of the terms I use is I help people make incredible music of their lives as well, with my music background and so forth. But it was interesting. Last night I was watching. It doesn't matter what show at the moment, but the music that was in it, it's like life without music or just try watching a movie with just dialogue, no score, no music, no anything. It's drab, it's terrible, it's what have you. So everyone does relate to the music value, and even if you're not musical, someone could understand maybe not the technical bits about it. And I'm not sure you get into, okay, well, this part would be more like an oboe and this would be the timpani and this would like, and you may, but point being is that it's such a great analogy for people to, or metaphor that people can relate and be able to put something that is oftentimes hard to put into words and give it an experience as opposed to simply this didactic sort of training and go, this is what you do and here's the so forth. So how did you get into the transition into marketing? I mean, SaaS is not it's not super new, but it's not, incredibly, old either necessarily as an actual business model. So how did you move into that as a space?
That's a great question. I actually had the incredible opportunity to work at an organization that transitioned from being an on-premise software solution to being a SaaS solution and maintaining those customers. And that transition was challenging, difficult, hard, all of that because SaaS was fairly new at the time. So I fell in love with it though, because the ability to communicate with businesses who need your solutions. At that time, it was a master data management solution, and they need it. Like in order to operate in their businesses, their day-to-day life of what they're doing, they have to have accurate data at their fingertips. And being able to offer that in a SaaS model uh, could be challenging for them because they were so used to an on-prem type of solution. And so taking them through that transition was a wonderful path and a wonderful journey as a marketing person to be able to maintain those relationships, to keep those customers, and to embrace a new model within the organization that I worked in. It is also like something else that I did, which was going from analog to digital in the wireless world, and very similar transition back in the days of flip phones, right? Before smartphones were really a thing, we had to transition wireless data, or actually wireless cellular backup devices. And we had to move those customers from the analog version to the digital version. And we were able to maintain 97% of those customers. And they had to buy a new device. So it's not like they were just switching something over and paying one price and doing this. They actually had to buy a new device. So that making that shift is something that I really enjoy. But when I did it in SaaS, I just decided that I loved it. It
Hmm.
was fun. I like the model. I like the way that you can market and continue to build relationships. I like the ability to have the upsell and cross sell and keep the connection with the customers as well. So that's how I got there. And then I just decided I really liked it.
So it also sounds like you made two transitions. One being the actual experience of the SaaS model being introduced, which is software as a service for anyone who doesn't. When you hear this acronym, you may or the word SaaS. Oh, is she sassy? No, it's an
See,
acronym. Um, but also, if I can glean into and read into what you shared, what you do now versus what you just shared is you were an employee and now you transitioned into consultant, independent contractor, et cetera. So what was that like? Because I think now more than ever, this is the journey so many people are on, are having a what they once thought was a stable opportunity, stable position, and there's a lot of uncertainty around it. And how do we find ways to continue to add value and be compensated for it, especially when you're used to a W-2 and just being okay, show up here, come in there, and then you go, okay, cool, and then that's that, as opposed to the entrepreneurship of consultancy and beyond.
you're absolutely right. It is a scary step for a lot of people to take. For me, it's been a journey of learning. It's been a journey of introspection of what is it that I really want to do and where are my passions, and learning to truly step in the confidence that I have the ability to do this. My voice is important, what I want to share, and helping other people harmonize and orchestrate their own harmony in their life. And I'm passionate about it. And I have learned from other business owners and other entrepreneurs that when you are passionate about something, it is much easier to make this transition into this role, right?
Yep.
It you can't just do it if you're kind of, oh, I'm thinking about it and maybe I might, and this is something I think I'm sort of kind of good at. You really have to be passionate about it and you really have to want to help others. And I think when you come from a servant leadership perspective like that, it makes it easier, quote unquote, to step into this type of role. I will not say it's easy, and I will say it's a roller coaster ride of
Hmm.
many things, right? But I'm really glad that I'm taking this path and I'm really enjoying meeting amazing people who just need that extra encouragement to step from where they are to the next level and have the ability to control their own destiny, just like I'm choosing in this role to own my own destiny, as opposed to letting somebody else decide it for me
Hmm.
and make choices for me. I want to make my own.
Love it. All right. So two things. One, I want to come back to something that you put in your intro that you shared with me. But before we go to that, I just want to sort of dig in a little bit as well to that servant leadership mindset and the passion, because it's interesting. I'm working with a friend of mine, and he's launching a pretty big project. And then I introduced him to another friend of mine, consultant, and he called me. He's like, I like his. What do you think? And I said, I'll be honest with you. I said, what he's offering is tremendous. It's world changing. It's something that is like, from a servant leadership perspective, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of my duty to, if I'm invited into this, and I have been, to do something, because it is something that's like, and we will talk about it another time, but it's also a startup in many respects. And my consultant friend, is like, so, what are your thoughts? And I said, well, I said that. And I said, but really, his passion for this, and his almost like maniacal, like it's all he talks about thing. And it's not, but he's, when he starts talking about it, he starts really getting into it. I said, that to me is inspiring, because I know how difficult it is to start a business. And that's the passion, the fuel that we need to lean into when we get the resistance, when we get the obstacles, when we get the denials, when we have these situations that are out of our control, that we just, what are you going to do? The only way we could get through it is to get through it. So share some of that. How has that passion, how is that leaning into servant leadership? And when I hear servant leadership, I also hear something on a spiritual level as well. So how much do you lean into that, including your passion, but also that would align, I imagine, with your spiritual highest calling, your purpose?
Yes. 1000% agree with that. So faith is a huge part of my life. I actually did go through and become a licensed pastor
Oh,
and
wow. Awesome.
with young adults, and I love doing their leadership retreats and helping them step into the leaders that they are meant to be, because that's the next generation of our leaders, right? Not just in their personal lives, but in the world itself. And I'm incredibly passionate about it. And I also love middle schoolers. I know I'm crazy, but I do. I love middle schoolers because when you're not their parent, they still think you're cool, right? You still have that cool factor. They'll still talk to you. I have to learn new lingo every day because there's some other new word or
Slay.
yeah, yeah. It's just like they say
Period.
saying lit. I didn't understand that for the longest time. I was like, What do you mean you're drunk? What?" Because that meant something different in my day and age. But they keep me young,
Hmm.
and I have a group of young adults that are here on a every other week basis that come, and they're learning leadership principles because they need to know it. But it's also from a faith perspective. So I have taken the Harmony Hero initiative, and I've pulled the passion that I have in my faith and the passion that I have to help people and the passion that I have for leadership skills all together. And in hoping to not only just help marketing leaders and HR leaders, but also to help people just become the people they're meant to be. And when you
Hmm.
step into your passion and your purpose and you put it all together, there's just something magical that happens. And when you're, as I call it, spiritually employed, then the provision is up to God, and whatever He brings to you is what you get. So He's responsible for that as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And so for me personally, that's where I'm sitting in this space right now as an entrepreneur, as a a faith-based person and as a leader.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing that, because some people get a little apprehensive to go down that path and bring in faith and whatever that is. I noticed you didn't lead with it here necessarily, although when I may have also read into it with through servant leadership, because that's also a very faith-based mindset. How do you navigate that in the corporate world? Because I have witnessed some pushback when someone does get a little down that road. I don't say red flags, maybe orange flags kind of go up where people don't know how to respond. Like they like it's almost like it's this eggshell conversation that people, and then when someone then leans in, obviously everything's like, whoo, oh, that's good. But how have you handled that? And also in a time where I believe we need it more than ever, because of that need is also why it's so charged. So how have you navigated that?
Wow. Okay, so let's go down this rabbit hole. This is going to be fun. In my professional career, I have been the leader of many groups and many different teams. In my organizations that I've worked in, I was known as the counselor. I was the one that everybody came to. I knew all the secrets within the company because people came and talked to me.
Hmm.
I didn't talk about it. I didn't go and share that information with anybody else. They knew it was a safe space. I never really had to say that I had faith or that I was this. It just came out naturally in conversations.
Hmm.
I am not a Bible thumper by any stretch. I don't go out and just try to, tell everybody, but a marketing person at heart is an evangelist. And that is one of the spiritual giftings. And I didn't like that initially because evangelism has actually a negative connotation in my space. I had to reframe what that means when I found out that that was my spiritual gifting. So I don't go out and just start with that with people. I love to listen. I love to
Hmm.
talk to them. I love to meet them where they are. And the best thing about any time you're working with leaders in particular, all leadership principles are based on biblical principles. You don't have to talk about it and you don't have to drive
Hmm.
it home and you don't have to say you're telling them the things that are biblically based principles because they work, because they come from that. And it opens the door for me to have a lot of conversations. I actually have a lot of divine conversations where somebody needed something. I had one yesterday, a networking conversation, and the person had an injury and they were really down and feeling, and I got to encourage them. And then at the end of it, I got to pray with them. Things I would have never have done necessarily in the business world. But as an entrepreneur and in this particular role, I am finding more doors open for me to have conversations, not because I open the door, but because I'm being honest and I'm sharing, and then somebody else asks me a question like you just did.
Hmm.
So it's amazing to me because this has really been a God journey for me. It's been very difficult. It's been hard. It's been fun. It's been interesting and intriguing, but it has also stretched me in that particular capacity.
Love it. And what happens is as well that when we have these conversations, we offer more permission for others to do the same, because it's been my experience that there are so many closet believers and seekers,
Mhm.
and they don't know how to express it. They're maybe looking for an opportunity to have that conversation, just to figure it out for themselves as well, because it's a journey. It's a lifetime journey. Wherever we are right now, we'll be in a different place in the future, just like our organization, just like our teams, just like our companies. So thank you for that on behalf of the universe. um, I wanted to also, we'll get back to the networking, but one of the things you said in your intro here is, says you know firsthand the struggle of being unheard, unseen, and undervalued in leadership roles. So speak into that, because I'm sure you're the only one who's ever experienced anything like that.
I actually know I am not the only person who's experienced that. Think about how you put together a board deck. Let's just put it in the boardroom, right? So you're prepping for a board meeting. How does that typically go? Typically, it goes, you're going to do the financials of the company. You're going to go through sales. You're going to spend a lot of time on what does the pipeline look like. You're going to talk about the product, whether that's in my world, it's SaaS, right? Or
Mhm.
technology or things like that. So you're going to spend a lot of time on that. Where are you going? What's the roadmap? How does that look like? And then maybe at the end, there's a few minutes to talk about marketing. And maybe, just maybe, there's a slide on HR, right? And that I have seen over and over and over and over again, quarter after quarter meeting with board meetings, right? And what I have found is that typically the marketing leader and the HR leader are the most marginalized voice at the table when they have a seat at the table. So they're sitting with their peers, but their voice is shoved off to the side, and they need to learn to wield the largest weapon that they have, which is their voice and their impact and their influence to make an
Mhm.
impact, right? And that's what I want to help them do. And by the way, I didn't always do it right. I did in some cases, and I have some really great examples of great environments where I had leaders who supported me and encouraged me and brought me out of the shadows and to be in the light, right? And I have examples where I thought I was doing it right, and it turned out I didn't, right? So
Mhm.
I've seen both sides of that. And I really do believe that marketing should be a growth driver. And HR is probably the most crucial role in today's organizations because people are what are going to make or break your organization. It isn't just about the product, it is about the people and how you treat them and how they are encouraged and what the culture is like. And being an HR leader who is actually able to lead is so crucial. So that's the reason I have focused on those two particular voices because I do think they are the most marginalized and most unseen. And I've lived it. And most of my friends in my peer groups have been the HR people, and we've had lots of conversations about this particular scenario. So it just made sense. It was a natural fit for me to put the two together.
And thank you for that for and honoring the value of the human and ultimately spiritual capital that every organization has. Like the personal drives the professional, and if we lose sight of that, if any organization loses sight of that, and they start treating their staff like numbers and no longer like people and so forth, it does impact the culture. Then it just becomes a cancer, and then that spreads, and the fish rots from the head back. So if leadership is not on that page, it's just going to basically get transferred to the rest of the organization. Plus, my belief is that uh, the the most important customers are the internal customers.
Mhm.
Because if we're not taking care of our team, they're not going to take care of our external customers. So again, the company rots from the inside out as well. We can handle any obstacle provided that we're aligned, that we are grounded, that we're communicating, and that we're honoring each other's gifts within the organization as well, and letting them shine and also letting them fail.
Mhm.
And that's the challenge. And then when it comes to marketing, I couldn't agree more. I remember, part of my history is I worked with Tony Robbins for many years as a national speaker and trainer with him. And when I left the organization, I left to run treatment centers with my wife. And Tony's like, look, if you don't take this job, I'm going to fire you because this is, you're doing for me what I did for Jim Rohn. Like, this is a temporary thing. You got to do your thing. Here's a great opportunity, and it's in alignment with who you are and what you guys do. So he said, but remember this. He goes, you are not a trainer. You are not a speaker. You are not an author. And I'm like, dude, you're killing me. I'm like, I'll just take this out while we're talking. And he goes, remember this. You are a marketer
Mhm.
of your coaching, of your speaking, of your books, of your trainings. So one of the, and it's so sad because there's that dance with the salespeople and the marketing people because the salespeople are going to blame the marketing team for not delivering them the best leads, and then it goes back and forth. And how are we presenting it? And that's true because the marketing is the pre-frame, the marketing is the setup, and some companies spend the smarter companies spend a bulk of their revenue on marketing, yet sometimes they're, to your point, the least listened to, or they hear a buzzword and then some leader goes, "Oh, let's try this." Or worse, they go, "Well, we used to do it that way. Let's keep doing it that way." And the challenge with people is the market gets saturated and then we got to be creative and so forth. So with that in mind, how do you bring, and I think a lot of consultants and coaches and executive coaches and so forth would value how you turn the mindset shift of leadership to embrace some of these other departments that need the attention, need the support, need the resources, and they're running an old pattern. How do you make that shift or help them make that shift?
So I work through a five-step approach with leaders, right? And you're right, you do have to start at the top. So where I am working with marketing and HR leaders, when I have the opportunity to work with CEOs, that's even better because it's their team that
Hmm.
drives all of this. And if you get buy-in at that level, it changes the dynamic immensely within any organization. But the first part of it is it's a think it, see it, share it, own it, and live it, right? But let's go back to I am in marketing and I do like things tied up with a pretty bow and all of it's based around music, right? So the first part of that is composing your mindset. And it's teaching them to think differently about the way either marketing or HR is influential in the organization. So if I'm talking to a CEO, I want to talk to him about, hey, this is a growth engine for you because your people and your what you spend on your marketing is what's going to drive the growth for your sales team to close, right? So you have to get them to shift their thinking to go from reactive to intentional. And that's the composing their mindset. Second part of that is they have to envision the symphony. They have to see the clarity so well that they know exactly where they're going. And I think a lot of leaders skip that step because they're just doing the things. When you don't have vision, people perish for lack of vision, right? So we've got to be able to orchestrate that culture of collaboration and get that vision cast out to the entire organization. And the third part that share it is harmonizing your influence. So that's working with your peers. That's not even your team so much. That's your peers. Because if product, marketing, HR, sales, finance, all of them are working together and they know where they're going, it's almost like magic and it's unstoppable, right? Then you transfer that to the team and get you to harmonize your influence with your team. Now your teams are working together naturally better because you as leaders are working naturally better together. And I've seen that happen in organizations and it's phenomenal. It's like a light switch difference from
Hmm.
one day to the next when the two teams are working together, particularly like a product and marketing, get them to work together. That makes a PLG, a product-led growth motion go super smooth as opposed to what can be very bumpy and challenging between the two. And the own it part is conducting with confidence. That's stepping into the room and owning your stuff.
Hmm.
All good, bad, but going confidently. Even if you've made mistakes, it's okay. Going confidently and say, hey, look, we tried this and it didn't work. And here's the results we expected, but here's where it landed. But this is what we're going to do now because we're going to take these lemons that we got and we're going to turn them into lemonade. So maybe this program didn't work the way we expected it to, but let's take what we learned from it, or let's take the names we did get, and now let's transfer that into a different campaign, right? Or a different program and getting them to own their life. And the last part of it is live it, and that's build your playlist. And when I want to train them to walk away with a personalized roadmap that helps them to intentionally create harmony in their lives, not just at work, but also at home because it
Hmm.
matters there too.
1,000%. Beautiful. So, can you share a story? you could obviously leave names out of it, that something didn't go according to plan, that you're where you hit some of those roadblocks where the people just weren't necessarily getting it, and how did you break through that and turn it around? Like, what was there, something, an aha moment that you had, that you noticed a pattern maybe, or you in what you were doing, or you were able to notice sooner, oh, okay, I see where this is going, so that you could kill the monster while it's little.
I probably have a million examples of things like that. I am a big believer of experimentation. I will tell my teams when I was working in those organizations, I'm like, go ahead and fail fast, right? So try things. Let's give it a shot. And if it didn't work, don't be afraid. Come back and let's talk about the results. And then let's see how can we use what we learned to benefit from it.
Hmm.
Didn't lose. We actually learned, and that's better, in my opinion. Let's see, but a good example, we had a customer conference that we were running. So we invited all of our customers to come to an event for a couple of days. And we learned very quickly that we needed to not put the training ahead of the customer conference. We needed to do it at the end. So this is an example of we're spending a lot of money to bring people together. The people didn't come and stay through the whole thing because the thing that they really wanted was that half day of training. And so the following year, and what happened in that particular example, the people came, did the training, stayed for maybe the first day of some stuff, and then they started, zipping out and going back to their lives, right? And went back to their offices, and we had spent money for day two and an event and things like
Hmm.
that, and there weren't the people to be there. And so for an event planner, that's not a great thing, right? So but that's the way they had been doing it prior to us coming in and trying to elevate the event. So we did it. It flopped from that perspective. The following year, we put it at the end. So we did 2 days of actual like conference with separate breakouts and lots of content for them from lots of different industry people. Did the training at the end, and the people stayed all the way through. And we were able to put $11 million in the pipeline
Great.
because we brought prospects, because we sold it differently, because we transitioned from just a kind of a user group into an actual customer conference. And so that's how you can take a bad thing and turn it into a good thing just by making a simple change like that. But you have to think through each campaign, each project, if it's an SEO project or a website project, or if it's whatever it is, you have to just look at it from a holistic perspective of where is it working well, keep doing that, and where it's not, let's learn from it and alter it, right? And sometimes you're doing it on the fly because things are digital now. So
Hmm.
you can put something out there and you see the conversion rate is not going well. Like you can put up a you can put up a pay-per-click ad and have it go to a landing page, and one is doing really well and one is not. Well, the one is not, let's just go ahead and change that right now. Let's try
Hmm.
out different things. So you can do things on the fly now that we couldn't do back in the early days of marketing.
So, speaking of technology, from that perspective and the people perspective, right? We have the technology, and then, as my friend Scott Klosowski says, humology. Um, with the new buzzword of AI, how has that impacted your balance of people versus technology? Where are you seeing the questions from leadership kind of going, wait a minute, and here's the challenge because we love the technology, and they go, wait a minute, I've got 12 copywriters, I could have two prompt engineers, and we could be doing 10 times as much work for a quarter of the price. So how have you navigated that? Because we're now dealing with people where that's part of the uncertainty that we're experiencing, especially in something like marketing, where so much is being done virtually, to your point. So how are you navigating that, and what impact is that having on your conversation?
So AI is a fantastic tool to be
Hmm.
used by people. That's the best way I know. A very short, sweet, concise answer for you. And in marketing, it can be a great tool, but it can't be a human being, and you're selling to human beings. And human beings know if it's something other than that. Now, AI is getting better. There's a lot of capabilities that it has, but you still need the human touch and the
Hmm.
human perspective to be able to utilize what you get from AI in order to make it really effective in a sales cycle, in a marketing cycle, things like that.
Well, agreed. And I think no one is necessarily arguing that point. What I do see happening though is the amount of people necessary to humanize. So you may have had a department of, 10 people, but AI can do a good portion of those tasks. Let's say it could do 50% of those tasks, and a lot of it is rote, kind of whatever it is in whatever position that is. But there are plenty of things that could be done and are being done with AI. So that this is what's causing the uncertainty. So I guess maybe the question here to add value to the two different people that would be dealing with this. One is leadership. How do they deal with that uncertainty and that fear? But also, how could someone make themselves so valuable that they're not going to have to worry about losing their gig to AI? What relationship will benefit them with AI?
Mhm. Okay, so let's tackle the leadership perspective first. I think that you're right. You can utilize fewer people to do what you would have been able to do in the past. That's what technology does for
Hmm.
us. So hire wisely. Hire people who are capable of doing not just the rote stuff, but being able to help other departments, help them be successful is what I would like. I'd call them a Harmony hero, right? A utility player, somebody that can come in and do a lot of the soft skills as well as being able to be really good at utilizing the technology to do their job. So that's one thing. If you're looking at you're in the role in marketing and you have the AI tools at your fingertips to be able to utilize it, how do you make yourself differentiated in order to be able to be valued? I think a huge part of that is that the market is shifting to going from very specialized to very generalized. So if your skill set, if you can do digital marketing, PPC, website creation, content creation, and you've got the soft skills that it takes to work with people because you're still working with people in an organization, you've just become what I call an MVP, and that's the utility player. And in my business, what I liken that to is a Swiss Army knife.
Hmm.
So it has all the different tools on the one device. So now you have just one knife, but it can do a lot of different things. And I think we're starting to see that shift. I think when I started in marketing, people were very much generalist, and then the curve went all the way to the other side, the pendulum swung, and everybody became very specialized in these very niche areas of marketing. And I think we're coming back to if you're more of a generalist, you have now differentiated yourself because you can manage all aspects of
Hmm.
marketing and the tools that go along with it. So be able to use the tools, that's one. So learn about them. If you're a marketing person and you are not using AI to help you with content creation and building schedules and doing a lot of the rote stuff, you need to get skilled in that very quickly. And then you need to be able to build upon that. It can't just spit that out and that's what you're turning in. You need to have a human perspective on it, but then also be very, very good at all aspects of it and have the soft skills. And if you have those, you will differentiate yourself.
So true. And the benefit of how technology has progressed in the sort of user friendliness is that it used to be someone who was very tech savvy was oftentimes, not to stereotype, it just they leaned a little less people friendly. They were tech friendly, not as people friendly. And now, because of the way the technology has evolved and user interfaces have been now become like a huge portion of that because we wanted to make it more available to people, this is a wonderful opportunity where it's going to be a more common thing to see someone both people savvy and tech savvy, because sometimes the two did not meet as well. And that's a beautiful thing. So, and yes, I agree 100% that if you can't beat them, join them, kind of thing. Like, we can't pretend, we can't put our heads in the sand and be living in fear of the technology, because it's coming whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So we can either align with it and maximize its benefits, and then be mindful of course, not leaning into it too much, where we're becoming. I did a little chat, a video about. I asked if AI was the Antichrist, and I actually asked Alexa if AI was the Antichrist, and it wouldn't answer. It actually would go boop, and it would shut down. And then I'd be like, Alexa, are you functioning perfectly? Like, yes, everything's fine. If you're like, Alexa, what's today's date? Da 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 da. What's the weather? Da da da. Alexa, is AI the Antichrist? Toot. And so I just throw that out there as just a who knows? It's just a funny conversation. But my point with sharing that is how hyper focused some people are fearing that part of technology. Like they love using the Facebook. They don't realize that it's in there. They love using all the other stuff. And then when it comes to AI, ChatGPT or whatever model you're using, now all of a sudden it's a fear, something to be feared.
Mhm.
As we move forward, and to your point, the people who succeed in this industry are the ones who are able to use all of the tools, that they are the Swiss Army knife of being a human, because we need the people skills. And though the challenge that we've had post the crazy time we experienced a few years ago is people stopped communicating as much. So it's almost, for some, the need is to go back to fundamentals, like talking face to face, shaking hands, to like what, hugging again, like, let's make hugging great again. Like there's this interesting dance that we're all having as we all find a way to navigate it, which I think goes back to our original conversation, or not original, but tapping into some next level of faith
Mhm.
that we're going to be okay.
Yep.
And the guy I quoted, Scott Klosowski, he wrote a book called "Did God Create the Internet?" Just posing it out there, because if we created it and we're in God's image, did God create it? Who knows? But that's a whole other conversation. So with all of that going on, where do you see yourself going? Where do you see the industry going? Where do you see, as all these shifts are happening, how have you been able to duck and dive and pivot? I hate using that word, but it's overused.
It is the post-COVID word.
Yeah. How how do you see this coming? Because I thought things were going to get better. I prayed things were going to get better after COVID, and they not haven't necessarily. That the challenges, the the emotional hangover is still being nursed. So and in business as well, like it's happening everywhere. Uh, The personal drives a professional. So where do you see the industries going at this point, from HR to marketing and beyond?
So I think a huge part of it is the need for connection. We live behind screens,
Hmm.
right? You and I are doing this behind screens. We have these, right, that we're behind all the time. We have an entire generation that doesn't even know how to talk to each other, to have a conversation, to sit at the dinner table without being on phones, right? So I think that's a big red flag in the world across the board, right? And so I think it's really crucial for leaders to continue to foster connection and collaboration. And the reality is you don't have to do it face to face. Like you can be intentional with something like this and utilize the technology to make a connection. I know you better, right? hopefully other people are getting to know us better because we're
Hmm.
having this conversation and we're being real. So as leaders, I think we need to still be real. We need to be humans. We need to say, I'm sorry. We need to say, hey, you're doing a great job. We need to say things that will encourage one another and help each other grow because iron sharpens iron. And you do that through connection when you have psychological safety and you have trust, right? So as leaders, we need to build those spaces. And that is a trend that I would love to say I see happening. I don't. I see that as an opposite. I think there are pockets of it where people are doing it well, and I think there's a lot of areas where people are missing the mark on that. And we throw the baby out with the bathwater
Hmm.
instead of actually coaching somebody and helping them get to where they need to be and be successful. We just cut people. And whether it's because of technology or because of not meeting standards or whatever, we make those decisions very quickly. So I think that's another trend that I see. And I see marketing and HR and others. I mean, I have lots of friends who have been cut for various reasons and not necessarily that made sense. So
Yep.
I think businesses are struggling right now with some of the decisions that are being made all around them, and they're fearful. And when you make decisions out of fear instead of out of a place of abundancy and having a mindset that says there's enough for everybody, when they make it out of fear instead, it makes it difficult for everybody and tough things happen all around. So I see a lot of that. And I don't want to end, as to end on a negative of
Oh,
that.
no, we won't.
I do think it is a reality,
Yeah.
which is why there is such a need for this type of conversation. Why there is a need for the Harmony Hero Initiative to exist. Because as long as there are people here, we still have to deal with people and we need to learn how to do that better and get back to some of the basics that matter. And I think we started to do that a little bit in during COVID.
Hmm.
Post COVID, I think we've still missing the mark a little bit on that.
I, I would agree, and you touched on it as you were sharing. You know, it was just a stark reminder, and then you ended with it is that it's based in fear. That and not to go down some conspiracy theory around the powers that be. It's true that we do not function well when we're acting, making decisions out of fear, anger, bitterness, resentment, frustration, resignation. And the most valuable skill set, I believe, that humans and spiritual beings can learn is emotional and spiritual mastery. And to not get locked into, and yet at the same time, I mean, what we're doing right now having this conversation, I like to say is edutainment, but really we're doing the exact same thing, just embracing the tool as opposed to using it as clickbait and to make people fearful and all that. And here's what's crazy. This is the to go down that path. So when I ran the marketing department of three treatment centers, and we were 150 million a year business minimum, and when we would do Facebook ads, we would get flagged because we were doing what is considered traditional marketing in that what do? You talk about the problem and then you have the solution. Well, believe it or not, the only thing you really couldn't talk about as far as problems and that kind of thing was mental health and drug and alcohol use. And I'm like, but okay, that's yeah. Like now, we don't have to isolate. It got so bad one time, an ad was turned down because we had a picture. Because we tried to change the text and make that like be more positive focus and not address problems and all of that, and it was really just talking about confusion. So we didn't use like the anger, frustration, confusion. You don't know what to do about your loved ones. My wife and I, we still do work with families who struggle with addiction, or loved one that in their family that has well, we work with the family, not the person with the addiction. But anyway, the picture was just simply a blurred out face because the head was going back and forth. So you just saw like kind of the hands and like just a blurred picture. And that like was a violation of ad guidelines because it touched pain. And yet everything else is so pain oriented. So let's kind of switch the gears a little bit in our last bit of time here together. Is how are you doing that where you're shifting the narrative? Because of course people don't buy a newspaper when it says 70 degrees and sunny. They only buy it when it says hurricane coming or tornado coming. So how can we help people shift and be, and look, it's a meta model. It's part of the way we're wired. We're wired to avoid pain. Like we're actually neurobiologically wired 10 to 1 pain sensors to pleasure sensors. So it's a natural thing and we embrace it. So how can we make that shift, lead by example, and help people be more forward thinking, more towards driven rather than away driven? Or how can we frame something? How are you finding a way to frame things that still tweaks like, okay, yeah, I really got to do something about it because, people will sit with a tumor like, growing out of their back until, like so we get my point. So how do you see that cultural shift in marketing that and beyond, because it's going to require again experimentation, failures, faith, and beyond. So how can we as servant leaders lead by example, exemplify that style of marketing, promotion, influence?
I think that's a great question. So, it's interesting. It is a oxymoron scenario, right? For people of faith. Because I am an incredibly positive person. I had one employee gave me a 360 and said that my biggest negative was I was too positive. I was like, okay, that's odd,
Thank
but
you.
thank you, I guess, kind of. Um, I think the way that you make that shift is doing exactly what you started in your question is you lead by example. You find a fun way to talk about the challenge. For me, that's been with music, right? So it's having all of the fun things around orchestra and harmony and symphony and things like that. And when you can help people by putting a pretty bow on it and they're willing and you're authentic and real, then they're willing to unwrap it and deal with the hard things. And the hard things are real. We all have to deal with them in our personal life and in our professional life. And when you have things happen in your own life or in the lives of your team members, you need to be able to unpack that, deal with it. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It's dealing with conflict in a peaceful way.
Yep.
And it's one of my favorite Ronald Reagan quotes, right? And I use it all the time. It doesn't have to be perfect and it doesn't always have to be pretty. As a matter of fact, most of the time it's going to be messy because you're dealing with people and people are messy. And that's okay. You just have to give grace for that. But I think you have to be the kind of leader that is willing to allow that messiness to happen in order to get to the final product, which is always, and I don't use that word very often, but always is going to produce a better product on the other end of that. If you're willing to
And
go through
always won't if it's not there.
yes, 100%. So that's how I deal with it, and that's how I talk about it when I'm talking to other leaders. Is it's okay that it's messy. You just have to continue going forward. And as long as you talk about it in a positive light, I even go so far as to say you can say it sucks. You just have to say it positively sucks. And then that way it's a positive way of saying it, right?
Hmm.
And it's okay. And sometimes you have to sit in that for a minute and then you move on. And then when you move on, you bring others along with you. And I think we have to exemplify that and we have to promote that out in the world.
And that's such a, from a leadership perspective, that's such a tough thing because on one level, if we've gotten to a certain point, people who have mastery make it look easy. So on that level, we go, okay, like you make it look so easy. So I want it to be that easy and I don't want to struggle and I don't want to and not to go down, being a Gen Xer and walking uphill both ways in the snow, kind of thing. there had been a shift during my lifetime, our lifetime, that was almost like Stepford wife life. Like things could never be messy. You can't show and that became the conditioning, and then what was acceptable. Then as we move into mastery, then we never want to look bad anyway. So now we can't get vulnerable and screw up and all of that. And we also don't want to then, if we do, then lose opportunities and then and all of that. Plus, on the other side, we have the Instagram, duck face everything. So now we see marketers like entrepreneurs, whatever, they'll rent the plane, sit on the tarmac, take the pictures, and then they're not really on they were on the plane, but they weren't flying so there's all of these games that are happening, and people say they want authenticity, except when it's their authenticity. And then when they are authentic, then they don't like the discomfort of that vulnerability and then how it gets received. And then we're all back into the same quagmire as we were before, rather than, and this is where the exemplification and the servant leadership is also the leading by example, is allowing people to look bad and not make them wrong and not point that out in a way that, and people have gotten hypersensitive to that anyway. You could say nothing, and then if you just look a certain way, like, oh, you just like, so like, and again, on our side, well, that's life's messy. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, all we could do is stay consistent, stay strong, and be that example of spirit and humanity all at the same time, loving, coming from love, honor, and respect. And when you come from that, to your point earlier, when we treat each other with love, honor, respect, when we're there to serve, and everyone does that, then I'm serving you, you're serving me. I'm loving you, you're loving me. And then we have more opportunities to heal whatever malfeasance happens, whatever confusing statement, whatever thing that could be taken the wrong way will tend to not be taken as wrong, because it was, to your point, done with positivity, with love, with a smile, and spoonful of sugar. Easier said than done. Simple, not easy.
Very true. And I do think that, going back to what you had asked me originally about how do you bring your faith into the workplace and not be have a stigma around that. And I truly was authentic with my teams. My life has not been easy. I've had a great life, but that does not mean that it's been easy. And when things were tough, I shared, not in a oversharing scenario, but when people asked, on my social media, I've been honest about the walk of being a full-time caregiver. That is a challenge, especially when it's your spouse. And by the way, I have plenty of friends who have children who are special needs kids, and they're going to have them forever with them, and they deal with challenges that are very similar to what I
Mm-hmm.
deal with my husband. And I have tried to be incredibly authentic without dishonoring my husband, be authentic about the challenges. It's a real thing. It's a hard thing. And what I try to stress to people who are in similar circumstances is that dead EMTs don't do anybody any good. So you really do have to take care of yourself. And so if I don't share that and I don't talk about how it's hard, or I don't talk about how some days it's just a big struggle, then everybody does just look at it like it's a beautiful picture from the outside, and they don't see the mess on the backside of the
Mm-hmm.
paint, right, or the tapestry. And I don't want that, because that isn't authentic. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, I want to live your life." No, you don't. You're not seeing the inside.
Grass is always greener.
Yeah, so water your own is my answer to that.
Yep.
But if it looks greener on my side, the reality is brown everywhere, so just water your own. Uh, so I do think you need to be able to be authentic, and Brene Brown would want us to be
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable, right? She's been trying to teach us all how important that particular skill is in leadership. And so we do have to lead by example. And it's not easy. And you're right, when you've mastered, you do you naturally fall into the trap of I don't want to share that I'm struggling with this, that, and the other. I have found there's so much more grace when you do.
Hmm. And the challenge, and I think in large part, and there, and maybe not, as I'm thinking aloud. There's a point at which I'm sure you've also seen that people like there's a fine line between sharing authentically what's going on to being rewarded for being a victim.
Mhm.
And sadly, and that's where I think again faith needs to come in, where this is where more and that it's from a service perspective. Like I'm only sharing this because I need to be authentic, but I also want there to be a lesson that someone's going to get out of this. Otherwise, I'm just sharing it for myself. It's not that I want the attention. The only attention I want is the kind that's going to let me know that it's helping you, but I don't want to be, checking for likes to see who's celebrating my misery. And unfortunately, that has been a trend as well, where people have actually gotten addicted to that victimhood because they get secondary gains. They get the illusion of love and care, people checking in on you, and then at some point hopefully people go, is that the kind of life I want? I want to surround myself with people that all they do is they're not empathetic, they're sympathetic, and that they're just like basically the only thing that I'm helping them with is going, my life is just worse than theirs. I'm the only thing I'm doing is helping them feel better because it could be worse. And
Yes.
again, this is a paradigm shift, a cultural shift that technology has given the up. It's a very level playing field. You can get attention for, and we demonize successful people. So I know we're going down another rabbit hole, but it's such an interesting thing that we see it happening all the time in our companies. I mean, essentially, a company is a dysfunctional family. So we've got the victim, we've got the class clown, we've got the little goth kid. Like we've got all the people, we've got the gossiper. We still have all of the same dynamics in a company. It's just functioning. It's as dysfunctional as a dysfunctional family because probably on some level we have lost our North Star. We have lost some faith, some golden rules, some underlying guiding principles, divine guiding principles that have been lost because we're being fed crack in the technological sense
Yes. And you get a shot of dopamine
every time. Yep.
every time.
Well,
So you get
crack
addicted.
will give you an increase of 1,200% of dopamine. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we get addicted to even just that. So we have to break that cycle, right? And discipline comes into that. That's a negative word in most people's
Hmm.
lives, right? But even if that discipline is breaking from the technology for a bit or setting boundaries around when you use it and how you use it and taking advantage of it when it's the right times, but then also setting boundaries for when you're not going to do that. In our house, we don't have our phones at the dinner table.
Hmm.
My kids are in college. We still don't have phones at the dinner table. And if mine is out, my kids will say, "Why is your phone on the dinner table?" So there's that, right? You just have to build that in it becomes part of your lifestyle. And I think we need to do that in organizations. We need to do that in our personal life. And we need to help others. And accountability is a huge part of that. And I do think that is something that's lacking in a lot of leadership organizations. There may be accountability to shareholders and things like that, but not accountability to how you're really running the business and the people and the things that are inside the business, right? I think that's something
Hmm.
that's missing, and it is the human element.
Yep. Yeah. When I'm brought in to do, I do similar but different work, and I'll do culture leadership trainings, et cetera. And mine's more like a seminar. We do the board breaks and the glass walks and fire walks and all that stuff. But one of the first things I do is when I'm communicating with leadership is find out what their mission, vision, and values are, and do they know them? And like, so some of the first things we're doing, whether they know them or not, is all right. Do they need to be updated? Are they still in alignment with who you guys are now? Do we have buy-in from the rest of the organization? And do they know Here's where the accountability and discipline is. What does it look like with skin on? How do you know you're living the mission, vision, and values? What would that look like? What are some behaviors? What are some ways that because the other reason why people don't say things, they're either afraid or they don't know. So those are two things to mitigate. Okay, well, if you don't know, let's get it out there. And then if you're afraid, let's mitigate that by showing what it would look like so you know when you could say something, you know that, oh, actually, it is the most loving thing to do to say something and hold them accountable because this is going to end up hurting the company or myself because I'm part of the company because now I own the mission, vision, and values with everybody. Is that part of the experience you've had as well? Is looking to see, okay, even just from marketing and HR, like that both play a huge role. That's representing in most respects most of the company.
Yes. So it's funny that you bring that up. You go even to if you're interviewing for a job, right? Most of the job descriptions have now the the culture statements or the value statements of the organization in that job description,
Mm,
right? And one of the things that has set me apart in my past was asking, give me examples of how those are lived out in your organization because they are important, because
hmm
they are the three things or the four things or the five things that should be guiding the entire organization towards the goal, which if you take care of the people and you build the product, the money will come. Like that's just the natural flow of that principle.
It's a natural consequence. Another word, consequence, that some people have a negative association to.
And so I ask that question because I want to know and I want to know if they're really living it, right? And then every person that I would ask in the interview process, I would ask them for an example because I want to see if it transferred through to all the different departments or all the different people that I was speaking with. And it was amazing how many people didn't know them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There was a company, BJ's, I think the restaurant has on their POS cycling their mission, vision, and values. It's always present. It's always there, and you know, I, what impact it has, I more noticed it than went in and then did a deep dive because it's not like I go there a lot, but I just happened to notice, like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. Like that's good to see. I valued that just from an organizational, excellence perspective. Like, oh, okay, cool. Like it's
And they're trying to keep it front and center, right?
yep.
At least they're doing that.
Yeah, we put it on the treatment centers on the ID tags. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, we like guys, let's put it on there. I want to be able to ask anyone in the company any of those questions, like, hey, what's our mission, and have them be able to just recite it and have that be part of their emotional connection to the work we were doing. Because especially when you're getting into more serious work like mental health work and so forth, there's a lot of stress and strain that's put on the psyche of the people that work there, hospitals, doctors, nurses, etc. And the ability to stay focused is so important when and not just focused on the client but focused like on the big picture, like aligning everything, aligning our personal and professional, which is you know easier said than done as well. So that's where to just go back to, I guess, a base, I don't know if it was Buddha who said, or whoever it was, before enlightenment, chop wood and fetch water. After enlightenment, chop wood and fetch water. Like that doesn't change the work that we have to do every day. And can we infuse our light into whatever we are doing? And Helen Keller talked about that as well, like doing those small things. So that's why when you have that mission, vision, value statement so apparent, it's easy to live it out because now we have some guidance. Like, oh, okay, cool. That's all right. Yeah, integrity. Oh, yeah, okay. I should probably own up to that one. Okay, love, honor, and respect. Okay, well, what is the most loving thing to do? So, we've taught our daughter that, and that's a question when my wife and I. It's like, what is the most loving thing to do right now?
Mhm.
What do we really want? Well, we want to be experiencing love. Okay, well then is what we're doing creating that for us,
That are creating the complete opposite.
right?
Yes.
And then adjust accordingly. So beautiful. This has been an amazing conversation. So, is there any last words? Like, let's the typical. It's almost trite question, but knowing what you know now, with all the experiences, all of the challenges, all of the successes, all of the incredible experiences that you've been had, and knowing that you wouldn't change it because it's made you who you are, and you celebrate it. I don't know if you do, but I'm hallucinating you do, that you're grateful for it, even though there were hard times. What would you tell your younger self when you maybe were a little lost, when you didn't know what to do? What would be some advice you would have given your younger self, knowing what you know now?
I would tell myself to keep smiling, be grateful, find something every day to be grateful for because there is something to be grateful for. And when you do that, it lifts your spirits. You are able to encourage yourself and you will be able to get through any struggle because you're not alone.
Beautiful. Love it. So a little hack that I got, I think it's probably from Tony Robbins. Um, what am I grateful for? Nothing. What could I be grateful for if I wanted to be grateful for? Right. So that's a little sort of a linguistic, hack around, because sometimes when we're really despondent, when we're really feeling hopeless, when we're really angry, someone comes along and say, "Hey, what are you happy about? What are you grateful for?" You're like, "I'll be happy to kick your butt." So that's a little hack. So
Say
how would one get in
it
touch
again.
with you? I'm
Okay,
sorry,
but say it again. Say it
Which?
again for me. The statement. He said nothing, and then you
Oh,
said,
say, well, if you wanted to be grateful, what could you be grateful
could
for?
you be? Okay. So the reason I ask is at our dinner table every night, and kids who come here love it and make my kids do it, who kind of roll their eyes sometimes. But we do high, low, and what did God speak to you, or what are you grateful for? And I have had people sit at my table and say, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, but you got up today. I'm giving them
Hmm.
reasons. So I love the question because I don't always want to give the answer. I want to
Right.
coach them to come up
Yeah,
with
if you
their.
wanted to feel grateful for, what could you? I
I
mean,
love
I know you're not grateful, but if you were, what
you
could you be
were.
grateful for?
What could you be potentially if you were
Yeah,
to, think about it from the outside perspective? So I love that. So thank you for sharing that.
of course, of course. So how do and thank you for sharing your most valuable asset, your time and your light. What would be a way that people could get in touch with you to learn more about you? And let's say they are a SaaS company that is knowing that I need what Sherry has to provide.
Awesome. I can be reached on LinkedIn. So my profile is Sherry Grote. And I also have a website. It is theharmonyhero.com. And I am on all the socials. So
Well, I must apologize. I did not clarify. I'm sure I introduced you with Grote, not Grody. So I'm,
it
I'm
is
sure
so
it's
good.
come.
I go by both because
Oh,
that's the way most people say it.
whew. Okay. I don't feel so bad, but I should have clarified earlier. Um, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you for who you are and who you aren't. And we look forward to more rock with you, as this is merely just the beginning.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for a great time.
Thank you. God bless.
Same to you.